Hi everyone, Caoimhin here from CIT's Blackrock Castle Observatory. Happy Dark Sky Week. I hope you're all looking at much darker skies than the one I am showing here. Even though we will be looking at the stars as they're seen roughly from Cork City, generally how we will see the stars in Ireland, I am showing the sky here with far more light pollution than we'll have here in our island. This is the kind of sky that greets many people in areas with more severe light pollution, but of course we'll be reducing this light pollution during the video so that we can see how good the sky really gets. If you've been enjoying these videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell icon next to it. That will make sure you get all of the most up-to-date notifications. Looking into the sky here, we can see some of the brighter stars. High in the south, we do have Regulus, the brightest star in Leo. We've also got the bright star Procyon. Underneath it, Sirius. Sirius is becoming more difficult to see, and it is very close to the horizon over the next few days. There's only a handful of really bright stars visible here, and it's certainly almost impossible to make out the shapes of any constellations. Regulus is visible. Algebra is barely visible, but we certainly don't see the sickle shape at the start of Leo. You might just about see the nebula there at the back, but the other stars that make up the shape of Leo, they are invisible in very light polluted skies. If we turn around to the northern sky, we'll see similar issues. Although the very bright star Vega is nice and clear towards the northeast there, the shape of the plough itself is practically invisible. It can take a second for the shape of the plough to become visible if you're looking in a light polluted sky. And because the plough is quite faint, the North Star itself is also quite tough to spot there in the middle of the northern sky. So we have been talking on Twitter all week about how important it is to reduce the light pollution in Cork City. The less light pollution we have, the more stars we see. But as well as working hard to reduce the light pollution, we also need to make sure the light pollution doesn't increase. More lights, especially more lights pointing upwards, can make light pollution worse and worse, and if we're not careful we might be left with a sky as barren as this one. As cities expand, new lights do get put up, so we need to make sure not only that old lights are replaced with better lights, but that new lights being made are made properly, that they don't send their light up into the sky. So of course this is a pretty extreme example. This is a sky with far more light pollution than Cork City. But even if we move our area with only slightly more light pollution than Cork, something like this is still not quite as good as we see in Cork City. We're certainly seeing more. The shape of Leo is more visible, although we can't see all of the sickle. The plough is certainly much clearer, even though one of those stars is still pretty faint. We're not seeing the shape of Gemini, just the brighter stars at the top. We can't see really the shape of Virgo. We can barely see the shape of Orion. Only his shoulders and belt are visible here. Turning back around to the north, at least the plough is a bit more visible, even if one of the stars in it is quite faint. The North Star is certainly more visible, but we can't even see all of Cassiopeia. Parts of Cassiopeia are missing, and that lovely constellation Boötes with Arcturus, well, most of that is pretty tough to see as well. So even if light pollution increases a little, we're going to see fewer stars in our sky, and this is only a little worse than Cork City. If I bring us back to the kind of light pollution we normally get, well, it's something like this. So we can make out a bit more of the sickle shape of Leo. We can sort of see the shape of Virgo, sort of see the shape of Gemini, but it is very much sort of. Some of the stars are quite faint, and it can often take a second for them to become visible in skies like Cork's. We're certainly not the most light polluted sky in the world, but we could also do much better. Even doing a little better is good. If we take away a little bit of the light pollution, this is the kind of sky you'd see in many of the towns around Cork City and many of the towns around Ireland. So the shape of Leo is now definitely visible. We can see all of the big stars that make up that constellation. The shape of Gemini also much more visible. We can see the arms and legs of those two twins. If we turn back around towards the north, well, that nice kite shape of Arcturus is certainly getting a lot more visible there. We can see the full W of Cassiopeia. We can certainly see all of the Plough, and even the shape of Ursa Major around the Plough is now visible with just our eyes. So even reducing light pollution a little is going to improve our view. The less light pollution you have, the more stars you have, and once you start seeing extra stars, well, it's always tempting to try and see more and more. So moving on now from the villages and towns, we're going to reduce the light pollution just a little bit more. This is the kind of sky, hopefully, this is the kind of sky that you'd see outside of most towns and villages. This is a sky with very, very little light pollution, but not absolutely none at all. So we can see here definitely the shape of Leo. We can see there's many more stars in and around Leo. The shape of Virgo is quite clear, as is the shape of Arcturus here, that kite shape in the sky. The Plough is very, very clear, as are many of the other shapes towards the north. Once the light pollution gets faint enough, even the North Star looks quite bright in the sky. And just over the sun, we have that nice shark fin shape of Perseus. So we're already seeing a lot more, even without removing all of the light pollution, even with a little bit of an orange-yellow glow over there in the west. This kind of sky is certainly very achievable even in cities. There's a lot less light pollution, but there is still a little bit of light going on. If we get rid of that yellowy glow over in the west, well, now, of course, it's just a little bit better without that light from the sun, and we're starting to see the lovely glow of the Milky Way there over in the west. Now, this is just 10:30, but Sirius is already gone. Sirius, our brightest star, will be leaving the sky quite early over the next few nights. This is a great sky, but we can do just a little bit better. Unfortunately, perfectly dark skies such as this are quite rare. There are so many cities and towns around the world that it's hard to find a place where no light creeps in. Areas like this are visible in Caoimhin in County Kerry, the Ballycroy wetlands in County Mayo, and indeed in various places all around the world. They can just be a little tough to find, so luckily the International Dark Sky Association, the IDA, they keep track of where dark skies are visible around the world. There are many more stars visible now over in the north. Even the shape of the Little Dipper stretching away from the North Star there is now quite visible, and that's very tough to see in skies that have more light pollution. Indeed, the sky is full of stars, about 2,500 of them, and this is the kind of sky that is above all of our heads. It's just affected by light pollution in many, many cases. Now, the glow of the Milky Way is one of the most impressive things that you can see in a dark sky, and it's stretching here from the southwest back towards the northeast. This is how it's going to look in the evening for the next few evenings, but the Milky Way at this time of the year actually looks best closer to morning time, about 4:30 in the morning. So I hope you'll join me for our next video when we take a closer look at that.